Are we leaving? Yeah, definitely. Are we supposed to leave at like 10-ish?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I can totally leave earlier, I just was trying to get my...
What do you think? What do you think?
What will I be making? I'll be making...
I'm just kidding. You gotta come to me. There's a big like Vegas yeah.
I could totally make something, and I actually have a new television recipe I tried. Yeah, it's got like, Alright, sounds good. Yeah, we'll figure out what this is.
I want to get now
Yeah.
right. So I never
Yeah. Alright,
wait for the clutch basket.
How are you? I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Maffey,
Here.
Alderman Bolin,
Here.
Alderman Mwambwe,
Here.
Alderman Emig,
Present.
Alderman Painter,
Here.
Alderman Carrillo,
Here.
Alderman Black, Alderman Crable,
Here.
Alderman Bray, Mayor Renner.
Here. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and start with the proclamations. First is declaring May 2019 Historic Preservation Month. And do we have someone here to accept that? Please come forward. Thank you so much. and a proclamation declaring May 2019 to be Historic Preservation Month. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people. And whereas the City of Bloomington's appointed Historic Preservation Commission is dedicated to the protection and restoration of Bloomington's historic, cultural, and architectural heritage. Whereas, quote, "This Place Matters," unquote, is a national campaign that encourages people to celebrate the places that are meaningful to them and to their communities. And Preservation Month is the perfect time to share with the world, co-sponsored by the City of Bloomington and the Trust for Historic Preservation. Now, therefore, I, Terry Renner, Mayor of Bloomington, do proclaim May 2019 to be Historic Preservation Month. Thank you very much. Oops, let me give you that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
May I just say a couple
Of course.
words?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Just stand up here?
Yes,
All right.
right by the microphone. Thank you.
Is this on right now or not?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mayor Renner, and also to the council for letting me be here. My name is Sherry Grayling. I am the chairperson of the Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Bloomington, and I want to take this opportunity to invite everyone here and anybody else you want to invite as well to our awards ceremony, our annual awards ceremony, which will be held over in the History Museum tomorrow night. And it will be starting at 5:30, and it will be in the Governor Pfeiffer courtroom over there. Mm-hmm. And we have several different awards that we're actually giving out. We are doing this in conjunction with the Town of Normal and also with the Old House Society. So there will be a lot of different awards given out. The one that I want to actually draw attention to, though, is our Preservationist of the Year Award, and that is going to Greg Coos. And I think everybody who knows Greg is going to be very, very appreciative of that fact. This is a Lifetime Achievement Award for his gracious attention to keeping our historic preservation efforts alive and well, and actually fostering those and starting the ball rolling for many, many, many things. So please, it's going to be a free event. It's going to be, we're going to have refreshments, and it'll be a chance to go and pay homage to all the award winners, but especially Greg Coos. So thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. He's definitely your go-to guy pretty much to find out anything. Like, when was the first breadcrumb dropped on the streets of Bloomington in the 19th century?
Oh my gosh.
He would know.
He would absolutely know. I mean, he started, he was born and raised here. He has a very quick mind. I think he really got involved in trying to find out where he came from as a person, and where this little town that had grown from a little speck on the plains to what it was at that point when he was a young boy, and realized pretty quick, I think, that we still exist here because of the magnificent railroad history that we have. We are a landlocked community. We've never had a port. We've never had a river. We've never had a lake. It's all because intersections of railroads came to be. And of course we have the Lincoln Davis history of all of that, and as young lawyers they helped to get that going and all of that. So we are here because of the past, and it's our chance tomorrow night, all of your chance, to come and honor that past.
Right. Well, thank you so much. The next is Comcast Cares Day. Is there someone to accept this? Thank you. Declaring May 4th, 2019 Comcast Cares Day, whereas Comcast remains an active, committed, and engaged member of the Bloomington community as demonstrated by 16 years of Comcast Day Cares service in local communities and well over 10,000 total numbers of volunteer hours, whereas Comcast supports the core value of American volunteerism through partnerships, grants, service activities that empower individuals and communities, and whereas Comcast Cares Day is a celebration of service and commitment to year-round volunteerism and has become one of the largest corporate commitments to volunteerism and service in America that brings employees, families, friends, and community partners together for a common purpose and mission, whereas Comcast is celebrating its 18th Comcast Cares Day and has reached important milestones, including more than 1 million volunteers and more than 6 million service hours at more than 10,000 projects since Comcast Cares Day started in 2001, whereas Comcast Cares Day promotes a spirit of corporate responsibility thanks to the hard work, dedication, and service of 100 volunteers in the Bloomington community. Now, therefore, I, Terry Renner, serving as mayor, do hereby proclaim May 4th, 2019 as Comcast Cares Day. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks.
To say a very quick word, I want to thank the mayor and the council for this proclamation. Comcast Cares Day is a very important day for us. It's a day for our employees and the community to come out for a day of volunteerism. We had a great host again this year of Miller Park Zoo. Jim McClure, who's with me, was the project coordinator. He can tell you just a little bit about what we did that day. But we had over 120 people show up on a little bit of chilly morning and got quite a bit done.
Yeah, this year was our second year to partner with Miller Park Zoo. Last year we were able to build a new chicken coop for them, and then this year we basically we're getting the park ready for all the new visitors for the spring and did some fence work around the carousel and mulch work and stuff. It was a great day to partner with employees and their families and also friends of Miller Park Zoo and the community. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last but not least is proclamation declaring the week of May 19th to the 25th, 2019 as Emergency Medical Services Week.
I say something just first to start with?
Of course.
Okay, so we've got the members of the headquarters fire station as well as EMS 1 with us tonight, but I'd like to ask the crew from Medic 1, which is the busiest ambulance in our fleet, to come forward and receive the proclamation, and I'll introduce those members to you. So first we have Brandon Vaughn, firefighter paramedic, and then we have probationary firefighter Quentin Hersey and Matthew Musson. You go ahead and go forward.
First of all, thank you all for what you do for our community. We all very much appreciate it. Proclamation to designate the week of May 19th to 25th, 2019 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness and injury, and whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine, and whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas members of the emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills, whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, I, Terry Renner, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim May 19th through the 25th, 2019 as Emergency Medical Services Week. And with this theme, we are strong and stand together. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Oh, I'm giving you a stick. No, sorry. Thank you. And next, we have recognitions of appointments by the City Council that were approved at the April 22nd, 2019 meeting. And again, people are recognized after they have been approved at the next following meeting. First, we have Daniel. If you're here, would you please stand? And please remain standing because we'll hold our applause till we're finished. Reappointment of Daniel Freeberg, Adrian Powell, Amanda Weisgerber to the Citizens Beautification Committee. Reappointment of Ronald Crick, Mark Hallex, and Kelly Williams to the Cultural Commission. Reappointment of Sherry Grogg to the Historic Preservation Commission. Reappointment of Arthur Hayes to the Housing Authority Board. Reappointment of Kai Ajay and Suresh Krishna to the Human Relations Commission. Reappointment of Alicia Henry, Van Miller, and Julian Westerhouse to the Library Board of Trustees. Reappointment of Justin Boyd and Daniel Stancic to the Planning Commission. Reappointment of Mark Fetzer to the Property Maintenance Review Board. Reappointment of Arthur Taylor and Jeff Woodard to the Public Safety and Community Relations Board. Reappointment of Cody Hendricks and Ken Oda to be reappointed to the Bloomington Normal Sister City Committee for Japan. Appointment of Laura Teppen to the Bloomington Normal Sister City Committee, Japan. Appointment of Michael Rakes to the Bloomington Board of Appeals. And I think, is that it?
Transportation Commission.
I got that messed up. My whole packet got messed up. Yes. Appointment of Adam Heenan to the Transportation Committee. Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much for your willingness to serve. Sorry about that. At this point, we move to public comment. I just want to clarify we have up to 3 minutes of public comment. We have more than, for a total of 30 minutes, we have more than 10 people who have registered, so I would ask that you, as much as possible, be as succinct as you can be so that we can get to all 12 people who have signed up for this evening. And so you do have up to 3 minutes, but I will read these in groups of 3 so you can be prepared to come forward. And just to clarify, our practice and policy has been not to respond to public comment. If you want immediate responses or answers, you can come to the mayor's open house, which is from 4:30 to 5:30, right over where all the department heads are in the back on the fishbowl. We sit and you can ask questions about things. We can hopefully, if possible, get you answers in real time, or at least you can get answers from us, possibly solve problems in real time. But at the very least, if you want a dialogue, that's the place for it. Here, this is a place to espouse your perspectives and opinions. Okay? So we're going to start with Ricky Lee Beneke, and then go to Serena Fish, and then Heidi Zimmerman, in that order. So Ricky Lee?
Hello, thank you. My name is Ricky Lee Beneke, and I'm here representing as a resident of Bloomington, and also as my position as Executive Director for Life Center for Independent Living, Lifestyle, out of Bloomington office. I'm here to talk about the current Connect Transit Board of Trustees, which does not appear to have the mixture of diversity that truly represents our community, especially regarding public transit. There have been many obstacles and barriers to accessing public transportation in this town, and especially barriers to accessibility. Access to accessibility, of course, has been addressed for many years and continues to grow instead of diminish. One way for this council to address it is through appointment of riders to the board, both riders of the fixed route and riders of paratransit or Connect Mobility. And this way, the council should not only do that, but also actively seek applicants that are more reflective of our community, our diverse and loving community that we have. It really should be about what you know and your experiences over who you know. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Serena Fish, and then Heidi Zimmerman, and Carla Lane.
Hello. I'm Serena Fish, and I live at 909 Westwood in the Miller Park area. I'm sorry, but I'm up here being positive again. I'd like to thank the police department, the Public Works Department, and the Community Development Department for taking care of a delinquent, dilapidated building in our area. We started going to the police department because we noticed people going in and out of the house um, who looked like they were probably using it for a reason other than living in it because the roof was all falling in. At that point, the house got boarded up, and through constant contact and what they had to do legally, which took a while, the house was condemned. The house was finally torn down, which it took over a year, but they had to go through the channels. And I'm happy to say the corner now of Oakland and Madison, they even graded it down and planted grass, and the grass is growing. So thank you once again for all the departments that participated and took care of the problem because we asked for help. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena. We have, excuse me, Heidi Zimmerman, Carla Lane, and Lori Bell.
Good evening. My name is Heidi Zimmerman, and I live in Normal, but I operate a small agency which supports people with intellectual disabilities who live in Bloomington and who also rely on public transit. I come here today to simply say that it is time for a new approach. Many people have made written and public comments to the members of the Connect Transit Board, pleading for them to make decisions that won't shut out people in our community from affordable and accessible means of transportation. These desperate pleas have not been seriously considered by the Connect Transit Board, and I have to ask myself why such alarming concerns would be essentially ignored by a group of volunteer board members who claim to have the best intentions of serving our community. The answer, for me, has become clear. The current Connect Transit Board cannot effectively do its job because it is lacking fundamental inclusion of people who participate in the transit system. Excluding people who possess this valuable insider knowledge is prohibiting Connect Transit from becoming stronger. By including people who are reliant upon transit, you are strengthening the organization's ability to better plan, set priorities, and more effectively deliver services. You also include people for whom public transit is a lifeline, not a choice. I'm asking you to use your leverage as the elected officials of Bloomington to enact a powerful change here by appointing at least one board member who relies upon a fixed route bus service for transportation and one board member who relies upon paratransit services. I also request that these board positions be written into the bylaws so that our transit system can continue to thrive for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Carla Lane, Lori Bell, and Megan Graff.
Good evening. My name is Carla Lane. I live at 3402 East Oakland Avenue. We also own 3404 East Oakland Avenue, and the two lots combined equal almost 5 acres. And it's a very unique property in town. We have just built a new home there, and we have 3 outbuildings, which includes one big red barn. Within that big red barn is a chicken coop. So at one time or another, there were chickens that lived there. So I'm asking that it be approved that I am able to raise chickens on my property. I don't know what all is in your packet, but it has been approved by the Planning Commission. And also all of my fence neighbors around the whole 5 acres, which, by the way, is all fenced in, signed a petition of their approval for us to have the chickens there. And that's just one more, I guess, example of organic gardening that we currently do, and taking care of our property for our benefit as well as our neighbors. It's a very beautiful property. So I would like you to consider it and approve my application for a chicken raising permit. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Lori Bell, Megan Graff, and Marguerite Brooks.
Thank you so much. I had the chance on Friday to attend the open house and to have a very great discussion with the mayor. But I would like to address the city council on this matter this evening. I just want to tell you, first of all, that one of the first and foremost founders of the disability integration movement, his name is Jean Vanier. He was a Canadian. He died last week. His funeral will be this week. There is not, other than maybe this country, but there is not a world leader all around the world who has not spoken to his death and the meaning of his life. He was living in a small village in France, and he looked at the institution where all the disabled people were held in that institution. And while other people were beginning to ask the question around the world, what are these people missing by being away from our community and locked away there? He never asked that. He asked, what is our community missing by having our members locked away in that institution? What are our churches, our congregations, our community meetings, our transit commissions, our neighborhoods, our parks, our parties, our election systems? What are we without these people part of it? So last week or the week before, I was reading in the Pantograph about this, about the issue, about the Transit Commission and who should be on it, and what routes should be and not be. And one of the Transit Commission members is quoted in the Pantograph as saying, well, we have to choose route priorities. Of course, we all understand that. He said, for instance, we've got a route that's got to go all the way out along West Market Street, because it's got to get all the way through that food desert and get to Walmart. So I want to just quote something that a Canadian wrote about Jean Vanier upon his death last week. It said, but of being open and vulnerable to disabled people in order to receive the life that they can offer is to become their friends. If we start to include the disadvantaged in our lives and enter into heartfelt relationships with them, they will change things in us. And here's the important part, Mr. Mayor. They will then start to affect our human organizations, like transit commissions, revealing new ways of being and walking together. So, in addition to appointing a person who is a rider and depends on that, public transit, for their transportation, I'm also saying that if you know people in this community who have skills and talents and want to contribute to the community, we have a massive grassroots effort going on in West Bloomington to end the food desert, restore the gateway to Bloomington, and put a grocery store at West Market and Howard. We would love you to appoint a commission or a committee and appoint those people there and move the people from the back of the bus up onto the Transit Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Megan Graff, Marguerite Brooks, and Scott Steinley.
On behalf of the bus riders, I came to represent the fares. In October, they're going to raise the bus fares, and I only work a 2-hour day job shift. It affects my income so much. And I like to keep it the same, $65 a monthly pass. Don't get rid of the pass, please. It's going to affect so many people. It's going to affect so many people with disabilities and stuff. And I've been riding the small bus for 2 years, and it gets me everywhere. I use it on a daily basis, and I don't have to pay $2 a month. That monthly pass saves me my whole income and stuff. I don't want to lose that monthly pass at all. It's going to affect so many people, ridership people. And then I was it's going to be so much people are going to be affected. All my people who live with me are going to be affected. They use it every daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Marguerite Brooks, Scott Steinley, and Judy Buchanan.
Good evening.
Thank
My
you.
name is Marguerite Brooks, and I am representing CEFT, Citizens to Ensure Fair Transit. Citizens to Ensure Fair Transit is a growing group of Bloomington Normal citizens who have attended board meetings, met with Connect Transit, and did several things to try and make a point regarding people, not only people with disabilities, but people who use the transit system. In 2015, Connect Transit was awarded by, I guess, by the nation for being the best for a small community for our bus system. In 2016, the board voted to make changes. Those changes have had a serious effect on both those with disabilities and others who ride the transit system. Our concern is this, that the board does not have representatives on that board who use the services. I've been blessed to have an opportunity to be on several boards, both here in Illinois and in the state of Texas, most recently the State Independent Living Council. And on those boards, it has been mandatory that the majority of the people on the board either represent those who are using the services or who use the services. We would like CEFT, Citizens to Ensure Fair Transit, is requesting that you not only consider, but that you make it mandatory as of today or as soon as possible that the majority of the people on the Connect Transit Board be those who are either use the services, represent those who use the services, or who have concerns for those who use the services. We think this is fair. It is a way for citizens to ensure fair transit to let our voices be heard. Our voices have been heard in ways, too, that have been beneficial to Connect Transit. A few years ago, when it was being threatened that funds were going to be withdrawn and Connect Transit could not continue, at that time we went to a board meeting to talk about our concerns, but at the board meeting it was said that they needed a link or some way so that the people of Bloomington would know what was going on. At that time, CEFT wrote a letter to the editor that was published in a Sunday paper. We had a link through our resources. We had a link put on the Connect Transit website so that people could reach the powers that be to let them know what the concerns were. At that time, again, we did an about face. We most recently did an about face when Connect Transit was given information regarding Medicaid, and those who use Medicaid could write free for doctor's appointments. We worked with the person in charge of operations in order to reach out to those who would be able to use the services. So we are not only asking that Connect Transit consider our concerns, but we have reached out to address Connect Transit concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I actually, with the cards, there are several more people. I'm sorry, Judy, you aren't third. It's Scott Steinley, Jen Morsch, and Ryan Whitehouse. Scott Steinley.
Scott Steimling, Ward 5. I do have a concern that they had mentioned regarding the Connect Transit. It seems like every place you turn that that the stops keep getting further and further and further away. What about these people that have to walk? Let's everybody on this council go up there and ride public transportation for a month and see how they like it when it's 0 out, Terry. Regarding the streets, the streets are absolutely pathetic. The storm drains are absolutely pathetic. They are sunk like you can't believe. There was flooding in front of my house and the drive, but I realized that the city, Jim Karsh doesn't really care for me to keep bringing this up, and I'll keep bringing it up until something is addressed. We've got the motor fuel tax that went into effect May 1st. What happened to the first motor fuel tax? Did it go to fund the pensions? You know, the allocation of these funds are absolutely terrible. And you are a lousy example for what, in my opinion, for what really needs to be done in this city, Terry. You know, and people are quick to form opinions. I guess we've seen people, I've seen an individual go past my house. You can tell they're sight impaired, and they've actually gone down on the street. You know, and no, those aren't great, but I mean, they're better than the sidewalks are. When are we going to upgrade these sidewalks without a tax increase? You know, it appears that the city has mismanaged funds for so long, and people are getting used to it. And, you know, I realize it's monopoly money. It's not real money. It's monopoly money. You know, I guess, I think I've made my points in very plain, clear English. Also, why was it not publicized that there was going to be a special meeting on the 1st of the month? Thank you.
Okay, Jen Morsch, Ryan Whitehouse, and Tamika Matthews.
To my left?
Yeah, but it's like hanging. It's
Oh.
suspended, yeah.
Right in front of me?
Yep, so just lean in a little bit.
Oh,
You'll be right
okay.
there. Yep.
Sit. Good boy. Thor, sit. Thank you. All right. So, can people hear me okay? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I am here, as others have been, on behalf of Citizens to Ensure Fair Transit, and specifically in regards to the board for Connect Transit. I, like others, am concerned that the board is for Connect Transit is not representative of ridership, whether that means somebody who relies on fixed route or somebody who relies on paratransit, whether that means somebody with a disability, somebody who's a single parent, somebody who's elderly, somebody of other ethnicities. I mean, at this point, it should be, the board should be reflective of, excuse me, where do you think you're going? Excuse me, sorry. The board needs to be representative of those who rely on ridership to go about their daily lives, because I think if that were true and if that were mandatory, then I think that the decisions being made would be different, because the people making the decisions would have more skin in the game, if you will, in regards to, it would be affecting how they go about their daily lives. So I'm here in solidarity with others who have spoken today to ask that when those positions become vacant, that they are filled, and that it is made mandatory that they are filled by people who either rely, one person who relies on fixed route, one person who relies on paratransit, or people who are household members of those who rely on those bus services. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ryan Whitehouse, Tamika Matthews, and Judy Buchanan.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ryan Whitehouse. I'm a Bloomington resident and Vice Chairman of Connect Transit, an appointee of this council and the mayor to serve on the board. Let me start by saying I hear what people are saying. Our board hears what people are saying, okay? I promise you that. We have had tons of time to talk about this, and we have strongly put in committees and started new groups we're going to bring in new input to this board, to let us understand what's needed. I'll also say this. I think it's unfair for people to paint that the current board sitting does not care or does not understand what's going on. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I understand the concerns, and I feel for them. But as an appointee from this council and from this mayor, I'm a trustee to the Connect Transit. I believe that my number one responsibility is the financial well-being of that system. If we do, riders are important. It is in our strategic plan. We talk about it all the time. But our number one role really is to make sure the system can serve the most amount of people for the longest time. If we don't look at making some changes, we will be out of money by 2023. What do we do at that point in time? Close the entire system down? I understand, again, it's hard to hear that and take that in. But I also want to give you some positive things here because Connect Transit has some really great things going for us. The state of the community's transit system is strong and getting stronger with increased ridership every month with this fiscal year. April looks as though it will be our strongest ridership month of the entire year. Ridership, or boardings per month, is an important number. Connect Transit is on course to have the third highest number of boardings in system history. Increasing usage tells us and me that we are serving our customers by bringing them where they want to go with the frequent service and with 90% on-time performance rates. So with that, I'll keep it kind of short, but I just want the council and the mayor and the public to know we do hear them. We do take it very serious, but we've got to make sure the system can serve the majority of the people and make sure the finances are strong. Thank you.
Thank you. Tamika Matthews and Judy Buchanan.
Hello, I'm Tamika Matthews, and I ride the bus, and I want to thank Connect Transit for expanding the time to 10 o'clock at night because I get off work at 9. And I also wanted to thank Connect Transit for having the buses run on Sundays. But my concern is for the people that uses the small bus, the fares is getting ready to go up, and that will hurt them. And I feel that the fares for them should stay the same. And I also would like for the bus for Sunday to run a little bit later because I get off at 9. So hopefully in the future, maybe you guys could consider having the bus to run a little bit later. Thank you.
Thank you. And last is Judy Buchanan.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and ladies and gentlemen of the council. A little allergy issue here. I will soon complete my 11th year as a trustee of Connect Transit. Recently, and here this evening as well, you've heard criticism of our board as to what we've brought to the table and how we make our decisions. In addition to being a volunteer role, we have committed many hours to become educated. A trustee must bring a broad background, and that is being cognizant of all sectors of our community. A track record of being able to collaborate, cooperate, and become engaged in problem solving. That's really where we are today. These multiple roles are changing and challenging as trustees make important decisions that we do recognize, as Ryan Whitehouse has just stated, impact the daily lives of our community and our riders. During my tenure, I have observed a number of changes to the system, all intended to improve local public transportation for all sectors, all communities, all neighborhoods, the geography of our community. The trustees have wrestled with difficult choices to choose options that will create a better, more timely, efficient, and sustainable system. That's part of our fiduciary responsibility. In fact, our customers, who are our riders, have consistently asked through their customer satisfaction surveys for more frequency and on-time schedules. And I'm happy to say that Connect Transit
has delivered on both accounts. The buses on the streets of Bloomington Normal today have increased their on-time performance from 77 to 92%. As was alluded to by Ryan, the increase in our ridership, it did decline prior to our 2016 restructure, but we are on the uptick, and we're pleased to report that. Connect Transit is now moving forward with the development of a working group. The group will look at public transit for the future right here in Bloomington Normal. We will examine a variety of documents, Connect Transit documents, our strategic plan, our budget, and other information which will inform the people on the committee of the decision-making process of the trustees and the information that we have available to us to guide us on those decisions. As I conclude my tenure as a Connect Transit trustee, I'm pleased to join this group and pleased that the City of Bloomington will be participating as we attempt to move forward and connect to the future with public transit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, we move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that any member of the City Council would like to have removed from the consent agenda for separate consideration?
I'd like to remove 7H.
Remove 7H.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other items that any member of the council would like to have removed for separate consideration? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve as presented with the exception of item 7H? And then did you want to mention the corrections?
Yeah,
the minutes?
so there was just one correction to my minutes from April 22nd. I missed the word saved on page 13. I've provided you corrected minutes for that, and I've also put corrected minutes out for the public if they'd like to do that. So if you'd ask for a motion that also includes the corrected minutes, that'd be great.
Okay. So could we have a motion then to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of item H and with the added word saved in the corrected minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Matthey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Crable. Any further discussion? Seeing none, if everyone go ahead and vote. I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought it was on already. So everyone go ahead and vote. There we go. Scott, I'm pressing the button. Ah, there it is. Voila. Okay. I thought maybe I did something, which is very possible, incorrectly, since I'm technologically challenged, as some people continually remind me. So the motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk, and I'm going to turn it over to Alderman Millawambwe for item H.
I'm just recusing myself.
Okay. If you want to go out in the hallway, and at some point we'll come get you. Is there a motion on item H?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, a motion to approve? Okay, motion for approval by Alderwoman Painter. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Alderman Carrillo. Alderwoman Carrillo, is there any further discussion on this item? Concerns? Okay, if everyone will go ahead and vote. The motion carries 8-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk, and I guess we should let Maboka back in. All right. We move on to item 8A, consideration of an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the Bloomington, Normal, McLean County, Gibson City, Ford County Enterprise Zone to support the expansion of Brandt Enterprises manufacturing facility in rural Hudson. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to our city manager and Mr. O'Grady, who I see in the audience.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just real quick comments before I turn it over to Mike O'Grady, the Interim Executive Director for the Bloomington Normal, EDC. This is a request that comes before all of the bodies that are a part of the Enterprise Zone, so it has to come in front of you guys. The request is for Brandt Industries, a very successful company that's making this request, and staff requests the approval of this, but additional comments brief presentation, and I'm sure Mike will take some questions, comments from the elected. Mike?
Thank you, everyone, for giving us an opportunity tonight to talk, and I'll open it up for questions. Just, I think everybody probably at this point knows about Brandt. This is a foreign company that has decided to land in our community at the former Conskill plant in North Normal. This is out in the rural, we say Hudson, that is their address, but it's just north of Normal. And that company, as we talked in early stages of this, kept their pledges. They told us that they were going to hire 50 people within the first year. They're well over 80 now. Their plans as they expand, and most of the expansion, or most of, I should say, capital investment, has been within the building structure itself. And I would say from my less than exact in engineering to no cost, there's got to be a couple $1 million worth of work that has already happened. With the expansion of this zone, it's going to allow them to, what they anticipate could be as many as $35 million and 300 employees over the next 5 to 6 years. Just one little added tidbit that just happened in the last few months, and I think it shows that they're committed to this area. They just purchased 45 acres of ground to the east of them, now making their campus over 90 acres. That's not part of what we're asking for tonight. They saw an opportunity, the property was for sale, and they purchased it, I think, to protect or to know that they had that area across from there as time goes on. So I'm very pleased with where they've gone so far, and I believe that they'll be very successful if we can get this enterprise zone in, because basically it's additional properties to the north and a little bit to the east on this side of the road, not across, that we're asking you to consider for the enterprise zone.
If you could clarify for the record, for the public, and for some of our new members perhaps, just the benefits to the enterprise zone, what does that mean, and does it cost us anything?
Sure. As for the city of Bloomington, no. Well, maybe. If they purchase their, what the enterprise zone covers is sales tax abatement. So when they purchase 2x4s, concrete, anything that they purchase in our community or outside, it's got to be within the state of Illinois. They can't purchase outside of that. They are exempt from sales tax. So I guess, to be fully honest, if they decide to buy concrete, and I know Stark has a big contract to do concrete pavement out there. If you've ever been out there, it's gravel, and there's not much space out there for parking cars. So depending on where they get their concrete, I guess it could cost some in sales tax. But overall, the state's taking the biggest chunk.
But in the absence of their investment, we wouldn't have gotten that concrete money anyway.
True.
Okay.
Mike, I think, just to clarify even further, it's only sales tax on materials that would be a permanent part of the structure.
That's true.
Not on anything that could be mobile or anything
No,
like that.
exactly. Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay. Alderwoman, I'm going to go from this side here. Alderwoman Painter, Carrillo, and Scott Black. Yeah.
I think this is a great idea. It's bringing much-needed jobs to our community, and I would like to make a motion to accept this.
Okay. If we get a second to the motion, this does not stop discussion. Alderwoman Bray, are you prepared to second the motion? Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Now we move. Did you want to say anything else? Okay. Alderwoman Carrillo.
Yeah, I would just like to know if there is any way to calculate what that loss in revenue would be from those materials. Do you have a sense of that?
I don't.
I mean, are we talking $10? Are we talking
I don't. Now, I will tell you,
$1 million?
I really don't know.
Okay.
You know, if they do $35 million, take 7.75%. Is that right? I don't know what the county. County.
But our portion would only be about a third of that total.
Again, it depends on where they purchase.
Depends on what they purchase. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Depends on where they purchase.
Okay.
One of the things I would be able to report back later, when they make an application to us to use the enterprise zone, once they're in it, any business would, they come to us, we manage that part of it. They give us an estimate at that point of how much they're going to spend, how much they're intending to. At the end, they make a final report, but we get a pretty good idea at that point of what they think from engineers' estimates it's going to cost in labor, in materials, et cetera. We get all that data, both that we share and the state gets. We may have a rough idea of what that number is, but I couldn't tell you that now,
Gotcha.
other than to tell you figure overall, if they do go to 35 million, and I think initially their first is $5 million, 30 to the future.
But are we tracking that such that we could actually look back and learn that number even retroactively?
We do track it. I don't know that we do it for the purposes that I understand what you're trying to ask me, but if somebody comes back to us later and says, what did that project cost? We can do that, and you could reasonably assume that what we know the sales tax rate is. But we don't always know where things are purchased. So they may have XYZ company out of Pontiac bring in materials and do that work. They're exempt, but we don't necessarily see that. We just know that XYZ company was doing the work.
Thank you.
Alderman Black, and then Alderman Craybill.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Oh.
So I know that part of any time we adjust the enterprise zone, it's a lengthy process that has to go through a number of governing bodies. I've always wondered this, and I've never got the clarification on it. What happens if one of those bodies declines to make the adjustment?
We would not be able to expand the zone.
So if any number of, are we the last stop in this tour?
Well, depending on the time tonight, Gibson City and Ford County are also voting tonight.
Gotcha. Okay.
And indications from both of those entities, they're fine. But my understanding is we've got to have consent from all of the taxing bodies in that zone to make an expansion.
Gotcha.
And maybe to put that in perspective, because sometimes the numbers, when we talk about 15 square miles and that, we still have over 800 acres left that we could use to expand for another company that might come into our communities. So there's still plenty left, and you do that on purpose because you don't know when a brand is going to come in your community.
Absolutely, and that's helpful because I know we've adjusted the EZ before, and that's always good to be part of the public conversation.
Sure.
So thank you.
Okay. And Alderman Craybill, and then Matthew.
Thanks, Mike. My question would be, and maybe you said this and I just didn't hear it, the economic impact of adding this part of the economic development. That's not the right word. Enterprise zone. All right, thank you.
I can't put a number to that, but what I can tell you is with 80 jobs now that we're going to lose, we didn't have, with potentially 5 million right now and 30 million, there's a lot of people going to work. I don't know that I can pin down those numbers. Somebody that's a statistician could, but we don't have that.
Isn't there like an estimate that there could be potentially 600 jobs? Is that
I
my
haven't heard
understanding?
that one. I haven't heard that. I've heard 3 bounce to 5, but again, and I think I said this somewhere else recently, and it was new news to me, but talking to the plant manager and others, their sales in the United States have far exceeded their expectations. They're very pleased and are struggling a little to get ramped up fast enough to do what they've got. So they've been very successful selling their products within the United States. And they sold here before, but their sales have been very, very good.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Alderman Matthew.
Thanks, Mike. I think that Jen asked a really interesting question that I would like to see us maybe start tracking. And we could just ask them for a survey after the fact, because any company that is using the enterprise zone, it'd just be interesting numbers to have of 1 year after the project was started. Where did you land? So we could actually have some real numbers to kind of wrap our brains around. I mean, I know that it'd be voluntary on their part, but maybe if we could say, hey, contingent on you being allowed to be in enterprises, we're going to come back and ask you what you did later. And so that'd be a really...
So for clarification, when they make their application, they give us what they expect to spend. They give us an estimate on how many construction jobs will be involved. They give us an estimate on how many new full-time employees will be added to that. At the end of that, they have to file papers with us for the state that says what they did. So we've got some of it. Now, how we've quantified that, so, to your question, I think it's a great idea, and I'm going to pass that on to the new CEO when he or she gets seated.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah, I just think that'd be good numbers to have long-term for us all. I also just wanted to point out, too, now, one of the things I had heard recently was that Brant had approached Heartland about a partnership between the two of them, Heartland Community College, because they need some very specific skill sets to operate the machinery out there, and Heartland is looking at building a new program around that as well. Do you have any information on that?
That is true, and it expands farther than that. They're in conversations with both Unit 5 and District 87 and the Bloomington Career Center about how they expand their programs. And there's also been opportunities for internships through the high schools, coming in, learning welding, learning different techniques. We're seeing the same thing with Brant, too, but there has been conversations, and they continue.
Okay. I just think that's another positive part of this whole story is developing a pipeline for kids who grow up in this area to go to school to know that there's some place for them to take a specialized skill set too. So I just want to make sure we talked about that part of the story.
Good point. Appreciate you saying that.
And I'll be supporting this too because, just for people who weren't paying attention, there's been multiple times we've expanded this in Bloomington, and all the same governing bodies have agreed to us asking that we expand this into Bloomington and make it available to parts of Bloomington we need to lift up. So thanks, Mike. Thank you. Alderwoman Emig and then Bolin.
Thank you for addressing us today. My question is actually related to Alderman Matthews' question. Of the 50 employees hired, how many came from our community, if you know?
I don't know. I mean, and what we could do is ask them to give us zip codes. You try to keep the employees' identity somewhat,
Of course.
But I think what they gave me, if you remember in the other taxing bodies that did tax abatements, it was the EDC's job to determine did they hit their numbers. And they gave us names, badge numbers, et cetera, through that. But it would not be difficult, and I will ask if they would give us zip codes so we have some idea. Sure.
Alderwoman Bolin.
Yeah, the only question I have, is there other ancillary businesses associated with this in town?
Yeah, to my knowledge, only one.
Okay.
Small company that makes some kind of flange that they use.
Okay.
They were originally in Canada, came in, but they're 2 or 3 person shop. But there are discussions with other companies that we have not been involved in yet. Only we're hearing it from Brant that there's companies that have made comments about setting closer to where they're at.
Okay. So there's a possibility that there will be more
I think
ancillary?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And associated with Alderwoman Bolin's question, there would certainly be, at this point we can't tell, residual benefits, spillover benefits to having a $5 to potentially $35 million investment in our community. So in other words, if people are buying lunch or construction
exactly.
and all the things that they're doing.
There's people flying in from Canada that are staying in our hotels, eating in our restaurants, but our construction companies and workers are working. So $35 million is going to keep them busy for a while.
That's great. Okay, let's see. Everybody okay? And I don't see any other, if everyone will go ahead and vote on the motion as made by Alderwoman Painter and seconded. Yes, we did. Alderwoman Bray. Okay. Motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much. And we move right along to item 8B, consideration of appointing a mayor pro tem for the city of Bloomington as requested by the administration. And again, just to clarify, we do have a vacancy in the mayor pro tem. The mayor pro tem historically, and Mr. Gleason may be filling us in a little bit more on that, is a position that where a council member would fill in for the mayor if the mayor is not here, if I'm not here, or whoever else is mayor in the future is not here, and they vote, if I'm not mistaken, as a council member, not as a tiebreaker as mayor, correct? No, they would actually vote, they'd have veto power. They would have, that would be the case if I were not here. Okay. And so there are some residual executive authority, there is some residual executive authority that would accrue to that. Now in the past, some places do rotate the mayor pro tem once, every year or so. Others have the most senior council member, and that has been the practice. The latter has been the practice in recent years. But at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gleason, and then the council for vote. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question?
I was just gonna ask whether Jeff or Tim could explain it in more detail, because this is something that I actually, wasn't sure
These
what
are
it
just
all
my
entailed.
preparatory remarks. I apologize. And then I was going to go ahead and turn it over to our administration. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I just, real quick, I recall in past Mayor Pro Tem would vote like anybody else would. I mean, she'd lean over and press the button.
Yeah, so there's kind of two differences. You can have, if the mayor is just, let's say he's sick, he's still in town, he still can serve as mayor, you could have a kind of a temporary chairman of the meeting, and in that situation, the person can still vote.
That's the difference, okay.
Now, if the mayor is, this is for a situation where the mayor is actually unable to serve as mayor, say he's out of the state or he's incapacitated in some way, then that person steps in the shoes of the mayor and has that authority and power.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. And Jeff, as long as you're there, would there be a specified time, or?
Well, it's in terms of the appointment?
No, I mean in terms of, let's say, if I were to go to Europe for 12 days or something like that, right, and then overlap the council meeting, right? I'm not going to Europe for 12 days that I know of.
Right.
But
no, it's really incumbent.
I have. Well, that's the reason I bring it up. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's really not unheard of. That's the reason. Thank you.
It's really either a factual determination by the council, or if you were to say I'm going to be gone for 12 days, you put that in writing, and we know, the council knows you're not in the state for 12 days, and then that's when the mayor pro tem is acting. It's not just because you've been sick and somebody wants to step into your shoes and start calling special meetings and doing other things like that. So it is for that finite period that the mayor is actually incapacitated.
And if, knock on wood, the mayor was incapacitated or was no longer able to serve as mayor, sorry, Terry, then what would happen? What would that process
Right,
be
so
like?
in that situation, and that does happen sometimes, in that situation, the council would select a new mayor to fill that position until the next election. I know the city manager Gleason has had that unfortunate situation before, but the mayor pro tem does not actually step into the position of mayor. It is really just, for times when he's absent, short periods of time.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Gleason?
Real quick, before I turn it back over to you, Mayor, and the council, did some pre-polling, I guess, and I only know of one name, but obviously that's discussion for the council, so I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Okay. At this point, it would be in order for us to entertain any nominations.
I would like to nominate Mavoka.
Okay. And Alderman Milawambwe, is there a second to that?
I'd like to second that.
Second by Alderwoman Bray. Any other nominations? Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, if everyone will go ahead and vote. Landslide Maboka. 9-0. Okay. All right. Well, congratulations. And by the way, the first meeting in July, you're going to have to chair. So.
You're going to Europe.
Actually, I'm not. Anyway, item 8C, consideration of an ordinance amending the city code to clarify references to city council member titles as requested by administration. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Mr. Gleason to clarify, and then back to the council.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is one that was a request of a handful of the elected officials, and then staff in searching what needs to be done next. Knew that it needed to come before council in this form, agenda item 8C tonight. But one thing that I wanted to share is that we set this up knowing that the municipal code technically calls the elected officials alderman. Our Our ordinance doesn't change that. Rather, it provides for the purposes of the city code and internal use within the city that the titles of council member and alderwoman, etc., have the same meaning as alderman. We also detail this in the council memo that's in the packet, including that people running for office still need to use the term alderman on their nominating petitions. This was one that we brought before council, wanted to do it right, and this is not uncommon, but maybe we're tip of the sword here with the city of Bloomington. So I'll send it back to you, Mayor and Council.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly I think that this is something personally that's long overdue. It may seem like a grammatical change, but I think in many ways it's reflecting a current society rather than society at the time that the Illinois Constitution was adopted. And so anyway, Alderwoman Bray.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager, for bringing this to our attention. Just a procedural point I wanted to ask about. So this is an item that's appearing on our agenda tonight because this is something that the staff or that the City Manager worked up in the vein of modernization. Is that correct?
I'm going to say this is a blend. When we were polling the elected officials for business cards, for nameplates, with this new body, there was that request that was made. So it required me to dive deeper into being able to respond appropriately. So I think it's a blend of what you just did ask.
So I'd like to ask our council a question in that regard. We have an agenda initiative process, and it relates to how items appear on our agenda. Certainly they can appear on the agenda at the decision of the city manager, but if we as the elected officials have a desire to put something on the agenda, we have a process that we go through first in order to get something on the agenda, and I wouldn't want an important piece of information such as this or an important initiative such as this to somehow be defective because of a process that we did not follow. So could you speak to that?
And our process, as you mentioned, also allows the city manager to put items on the agenda, which, he basically does at every meeting. And so you will have times when there's, kind of widespread support or something that it's maybe, an alderman or the mayor might say something, and then the city manager says, that's a good idea, we need to bring this forward. And so you're going to have situations like that don't necessarily need that agenda initiative type process. And our code does allow that to go kind of in either direction. But it wouldn't create a deficiency that would void this ordinance or anything like that.
Okay, thank you for that.
Right.
But
I
whenever
think
we
the question,
aldermen and women, whenever we as aldermen and women have a desire to bring forward an initiative, we have an initiative process that we follow, and it's an ordinance that we passed, right?
Right.
So
And I think what the city manager was suggesting was that it was kind of a blend. There were some people who have asked several different questions, and the city manager just goes over the agenda with me. We both talked about it, and so it wound up. It wasn't just a single alderperson asking for something. That, as you're saying, let's say I want, I'm using a silly example, an alley paved in my ward, right? And see if there's broader, participation for it. That this was something that seemed to have both administrative as well as council support, and I believe Mr. Gleason kind of polled the council, and there seemed to be pretty broad support for this. So I think that's why it appeared. So anyway, I don't know if that explains things a little bit.
Well, Mayor, thank you for your input on that. But again, we do have a process in place of how items appear on the agenda if they're backed by the aldermen and the alderwomen and the council members. So, we have new folks on the council this evening serving, and just getting everyone up to speed on how we proceed to build agendas, I think is an important piece for all of us to get to on the same page in that regard. So I do hear the city manager saying to us that this is something that he's seeing as from an administrative standpoint. He has the authority to put things on the agenda, but at the same time, I don't want us putting him in a position wherein groups of aldermen are going to him and lobbying him to build an agenda when it's something that's actually subject to council member process through the agenda initiative process. So I just want to put that out there. I will be voting in favor of this if we go forward, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page when it relates to how we actually do our business in front of the people, not behind the doors, not certain select groups. We do our business in front of the people, and we have a process that we follow of how we get items on our agendas. So thank you.
Right. But, and then there can be any number of, just to quickly review that, especially since we've got some new council members. A council member, I'm looking at Jeff, can file a request to have something put on, and that would be discussed at the committee of the whole, and that's the process I think that Alderwoman Bray is referring to. It can be, the city manager, it can be the mayor can call a special meeting for that, and I think that's one of the reasons why, the city manager and mayor, under normal circumstances, are going to talk about what the agenda is going to look like. But if there's a specific thing that an alderman or woman wants to have put on the agenda, then that would normally just go through the committee of the whole, and we would talk about it. Is there 5 minutes? Is there broad support, or is there support beyond one person? And then it would appear on the subsequent agenda. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah. Okay. Just to clarify that. Okay. Alderwoman Carrillo, and then Alderman Craybill.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think the process was followed. In my estimation, is it was a very innocuous request of us to say what we wanted to be identified as and what we wanted on our business cards and our nameplates. And I don't think that there was any effort to lobby Tim or put him in a situation where he felt that that was something that needed to be put on the agenda. I'm aware that there is a process for putting forth a request, but this was really something I think that started as a administrative, business card stuff that ended up, requiring a change that was broader, and so it needed to be brought to the agenda. So I do think that clarification should be made, because I don't want the implication that these conversations aren't happening in front of the public and behind closed doors.
Well, and also we have to act on it, as we're doing in public. Alderman Craybill, and then we'll see whoever else. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. So just from my personal experience with this, I wanted certain things on my nameplate business cards. And Tim, you were the one that came to me and said, I think we might need an ordinance on this. And that's where it was left. So, and I do have comments on this, but should I wait?
No, go ahead.
Do I have to make all my comments now?
No, let's be as efficiently as possible.
Okay, all right. So like the mayor said, I think this change is long overdue. I think it goes towards being a friendly and safe community. It serves the city's mission to uplift the community and the city's value of inclusiveness. Many other government bodies, including those in the Midwest, have the same type of language. And I will be happily voting yes on this matter. And my pronouns are he, him, and his. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Black.
Yeah, thank you. And so this conversation prompts me to think back, and as now I look over at Boca, we're the two tenured guys over here. So I remember the rough and tumble days of where one alderman would demand something get on the agenda, and it was always kind of we would waste a ton of time, of staff time, resources, and energy trying to work that through, and there was never support for it. So that's why we crafted the process that we did, and I think it's worked out somewhat the way we intended, but it's always interesting with the new groups of folks here. So I hear Kim's point, and I agree that this is ideally something that comes forward. But I trust Tim to put things on the agenda that the city needs to have at their attention. And so, I don't have any problem. And as part of thinking about this whole issue is, for some of the newer aldermen who I may not know this, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. And if you remember the original series, it was where no man had gone before. And then the Next Generation, it was where no one had gone before. And so if Star Trek can do it, we can do it too. So
that's pre-millennial stuff. You're not supposed to do that. Alderman Milwaukee.
Okay, well, thank you. And so we're going to go from an old guy to an older guy here. No, I just wanted to first thank Alderwoman Bray for bringing up this issue. And I think, generally, the way I look at it, the intention is not to insinuate that there are things, happening behind closed doors or anything like that. But I think it is important with new council members to really continue to establish the history of how we've done things. That doesn't mean that we can't change that, but I think it is extremely important because we've made significant strides, over the past few years. And going back to what Alderman Scott Black was saying, where I remember it was really painful sometimes to be able to get things through the agenda. So I think one of the things that I have appreciated, especially with the arrival of the current city manager, is that I can see there is more discipline in how we're doing business. There is more thoughtfulness ahead of time, how things are coming in front of us, and I think it's important to reiterate that so that we can continue to make progress in that direction. So appreciate Alderman Bray bringing that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes to all your points. Thank you. Alderwoman Boland.
I would like to echo what Mbamwe and Alderman Bray said, because I was present at those meetings. So I am so thankful that the change was made, and I do think it's very important to follow the procedures that have been put into place. Yeah, half the council is brand new and probably are not familiar with these procedures, so I think it's important to bring them up and try to follow through on them. That's really all I have to say. I will vote in favor. I respect their request, and I will honor that.
Thank you very much. At this point, we really need a, excuse me, Alderwoman Emig, and then we need a motion.
Okay. So I think there are two good things that came out of this. One, it illuminated the process for future agenda items and how they are put into play to avoid any rancor or confusion. And it's also just really good to have this addressed because I am also one of the new alderwomen who requested on her business card that I be alderwoman, having no idea that there would even be a code or an administrative agenda item. So I'm appreciative that our names are being recognized for what they are, and it may seem insignificant, but names have power. So I appreciate having both things happen this evening, clarification and progress. So thank you.
Thanks. Alderwoman Painter.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
Thank you.
Actually, if I could have changed my awful name years ago, I would have. My name is Johnny. I identify as a female. I tried to switch it to Joni many times, but people just switch it back. So I am very sensitive to this issue, and I would like to move this forward.
Alderman Matthey. Second. And seconded by Alderman Matthey. Any further discussion? Okay, if everyone will go ahead and vote on this issue. Thank you. Thank you for that impassioned finale. The motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. And we move to our city manager's discussion. Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. On the board, we have the events in and around Bloomington for the next couple of weeks. And additional comments from me, I guess I'd like to thank the council on a couple of fronts. One, the Illinois Municipal League holds a lobby day, and that occurs on May 1st. The city of Bloomington was represented very well down in Springfield. Started out with a morning session, led to lunch on your own, oftentimes with our local state representatives, and then an afternoon session as well. We had all but two of the elected body there, and the two that weren't able to join was because of a conflict with their existing calendar. Shift gears. We had a special meeting, and I promise I won't do this to you very often on a Saturday morning. but it was a newly elected orientation, and typically the existing elected joined that as well. It was a formal posted special meeting on May 4th, and the purpose of that was to allow this new elected body to meet the department directors, learn a little bit about them, the area that they're responsible for, and then at the halfway point, we actually loaded up on a bus, Connect Transit bus, and took a tour of the community, some of the primary sites that you're now responsible for, showed some of the areas that we identify as opportunities and some areas that we identify as challenging, which I also like to think are opportunities. But that was well attended by the elected body, and very much appreciate that. That'll do it for me, Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd also like to thank the members of the council. We had 7 out of 9 council members plus myself. We have never had that in an Illinois Municipal League function, ever. And our 2 youngest people didn't come. Well, we know why. They actually, you all both flew in later, so I'm teasing. And they were there for the evening meeting. But no, that's just outstanding, and I commend everyone for that and their commitment to making sure not just that Bloomington's represented, but that there is a comparative perspective to be had as we're making our decisions. So thank you all so much for that. I was very proud, and it gave me some bona fides to nudge Mayor Coos with. But anyway, the other thing that I would like to say is a little more somber note. I'd like to ask that everyone's thoughts and prayers be with Scott Laughlin and his family, a longtime member of our local media who's having severe health problems, and is someone who's been a great professional as well as great friend. And so again, if we could keep him in our thoughts and prayers, him and his family. And then the other thing is that we had quite a few people this evening, as well as we did at my open house, talk about the Connect Transit situation. And I think one thing that certainly in terms of the long run that we could consider, and the council could consider, and perhaps this would also then require the town of Normal to consider, is to reserve a seat or 2 seats, in perhaps in conjunction with each city for people who are regular riders, perhaps people who have special needs, and that could be something then that's not just this council, this mayor, or another, maybe another council and mayor might do something different, because certainly that does not seem like a long-term unreasonable request. And obviously one of the things we're trying to do on all boards and commissions is to pursue much greater diversity, and we've succeeded in that with nearly 300 positions. We've got lots of people who are less affluent. We've got a lot of 20-somethings and 30-somethings, as well as people from the west side, east side, gays, straights, large numbers of people. And I think that's important to not only making better decisions, but also having people of diverse backgrounds being prepared to run for city council or run for mayor or be our state representatives, of tomorrow for lots of reasons. Embracing our diversity, I think, is a really important thing. But at this point, I'm going to turn it over to aldermanic comments, and I'm going to start with Alderman Bray, and we'll go around. And so we can come back around if you want. But excuse me, Alderman Bray. I'm sorry, Alderman Black. You didn't have your light on. Sorry, Kim. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay.
It's fine.
We'll start with Alderman Black and then come around.
Thank you. So what I wanted to touch on is the Connect Transit conversation. I see some folks who are still here from before and some who have left. So I know it's the end of the meeting, and hopefully some of this will get back to those folks that are passionate about this issue. Just a couple of thoughts. So right out the gate, in my experience with all the Connect Transit board members, they care very deeply about the community. They volunteer their time, and they are willing to take phone calls and listen to anybody who wants to provide feedback. When it comes to these types of boards and commissions, it's very difficult to please everybody. And I'm feeling the disconnect here at a couple levels. And I know that Connect Transit, a lot of their funding comes through the state of Illinois. We contribute about $1.2 million a year, which a couple years ago was not that much. I think we were giving like half of that, and we doubled it because this council believed in the mission of Connect Transit, my sense is that we still do. So we give a pretty sizable amount of money to Connect Transit. We invest in it because we care. But the state of Illinois provides most of their operating budget. I'm not as familiar with it as I'm not on that board. And one of the frustrations I feel because I'm not on that board is that people will come to the city council and ask us to change the routes, update the fares, and we really aren't in a position to do that. The board is, and so I will often direct people to the board, and they've always, to my knowledge, been very responsive, not only to me, but members who reach out to me, and we facilitate that conversation. But I'm wondering, and this is a conversation maybe for, I can fill out an Alderman request form, but I think that there's a sense here that we want to have this discussion. Maybe the time is to review these bylaws, and I don't know how the bylaws work. I'm coming off of the Convention and Visitors Bureau conversation where we just updated our bylaws after 10 years, and maybe a solution to this problem is to double the size of the board. Why limit us to the number that are currently on there? Why not double it? And that way we can open up new seats. We can improve representation in the community. I know that for the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which the city contributes about $400,000 a year to, that is, a third of the amount, and we haven't had that kind of, we had to revise our board to be more inclusive, more representative of people in the hospitality industry, and we followed a process and got that completed. So I'm very interested in knowing if we could even do that if there's so much state money that's imbued with that organization. That'd be one thing that I'd like to see. Piece number two, I guess, is, I hear a lot of conversation about ridership going up, and I see the numbers when Isaac comes, and I appreciate that, but I continue to hear the feedback that the buses appear to be empty. And so the way that I want to look at Connect Transit now is maybe percent occupancy on the bus. I think we need to have a robust transit system where lots of people are riding because we simply cannot afford to have more cars, more wear and tear on our roads. I mean, we look at the amount of money that we're investing in our infrastructure. That number isn't going to go down with more cars on the road. And it's not just an accessibility issue, it's also a financial issue from the way that I see it. And to that point, there's been a kind of a percolating conversation when it comes to Connect Transit, specifically in relation to a fare-free service. So I would challenge the Connect Transit Board to show us what it would cost from each of the municipalities to have there be no fares so that we can increase the occupancy on the bus. That way, to me, I think that it'll pay dividends in terms of less maintenance on our roads. I don't know what that number would be. I don't know what it would look like. But until we ask the question, we'll never get the answer. So I'm very interested in seeing that, and I'd be very interested in reviewing what options we have with those bylaws, because I'm loving that we're seeing people who've never been involved before they're taking such a passionate stance on these issues. And anytime that we're talking about transit, it's good for our community because it impacts everything: economic development, accessibility, just overall quality of life. And so I'm ready to have that conversation, and I'm hoping we can find ways to facilitate that.
Thank you. Alderwoman, and again, I'm going to circle back around here. So Alderwoman Carrillo.
Oh, yes. I just want to first second this idea of fare-free transit. I think that is a conversation that I would be very, very interested in having as well. And also looking at when we can have the conversation about whether we can look at the bylaws. I do want to thank, maybe folks are watching on YouTube, but thank everybody who showed up tonight. I think the points that were made were really, really important. And I think that I commend the current members of the Connect Transit Board for their service, and I don't doubt their good intentions at all, but I do think that there is a big difference in being able to hear people and then actually carrying those struggles in your daily lives, and I do think that plays out in the decisions that are being made, as Jen shared when she came up here, and so I would be very interested in us continuing the conversation about how we can include that representation in the Connect Transit Board, and I wouldn't be opposed to it being expanded to allow more people to have a say, but I also do want to make sure that we don't lose the point that people came here to make, which is it is a board that should be
run by the people who use the service. And so I will shut up in a second, but just also want to thank Tim and the staff for their attentiveness to the gender-neutral language issue, and also for all the onboarding and orientation that they have provided for us in the last couple of weeks. It's been really, really helpful, and I especially enjoyed that special session and getting to meet everybody, and I understand that's not a practice that we have had in the city. So thank you so much for putting that together. It was really great.
Thank you. Alderman Miller-Wamboy.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I want to say thank you to Tim as well for the orientation. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, but that is something that we haven't had in the past, and I've always felt like it was something important, and I had approached previous city manager about that, so I'm glad to see that it's being formalized. And that we'll have it every time we have a new council member. I also want to echo the conversation about Connect Transit. I would definitely be interested in maybe having committee of the whole to discuss this issue, because I think, I know some of the board members, well-meaning, they've been part of the community for a very long time, but I also cannot ignore the differences of opinion that I'm hearing. So I think it would be very important to explore that and see how we can make things work for the community. And I know in the past they've made changes, but this time it feels like the changes have hit people a little harder than in the past. So I'd be very interested in exploring all these differences of opinion, see how we can make it work for everyone. And also I wanted to say just a quick thank you for basically voting for me for Mayor Pro Tem. And again, I don't have any particular goals when it comes to that. It's just basically to step in when the mayor is not present. So I in the tradition of Seinfeld, I want to be the Mayor Pro Tem about nothing, So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, in the tradition of Seinfeld and Star Wars all in one night. Yes, or Star Trek, excuse me. That's right. Oh, excuse me. Yeah,
So I wanted
Mathis.
to say, I'm sorry I missed the orientation because it was Star Trek Day, and I had a little bit of a tie to that in the community. Yeah, yes, exactly, May the 4th. And I also want to say thank you to Mboka for going ahead and taking on a bunch of extra responsibility for no additional money, so good job on that one. But what I really want to say is I got an opportunity to go with Deputy City Manager Tyus to the opening of the new alligator exhibit at the zoo, and it was really cool and freaky at the same time. That albino alligator's kind of weird looking up close to him, so I would encourage everybody to go check it out. I mean, it's not a lot of opportunities to see alligators in central Illinois. And also, I just wanted to say thank you to Public Works and Engineering and everybody else involved. Downtown construction started today. The finally getting the roads fixed, which have needed it for 30-ish years probably. And the team that's down there cranked out a ton today, even way more than they thought they were going to get done. So it's really interesting to see this finally happening after we've been advocating for it and trying to get some things to happen downtown for decades at this point. And then finally, in a note of for all the people that are out there that say that there's nothing to do in Bloomington, apparently on the first Friday, starting the first Friday of June, it's all happening the same weekend. With the Cogs and Corsets and the WGLT Summer Concert and the Old House Society Tour all happening on the same day. So I challenge you to see how many things you can get done in one day.
Thank you very much. Alderwoman Bray.
Thank you, Mayor. And I also wanted to shout out to Tim, the orientation that was provided, and the staff as well. Was just so well done. And I think it helps us all as we, again, work to get on the same page an understanding of how this city works and how we can work better together. So thank you for that and for the staff's work on that. Mayor, I also had on my list the Connect Transit issues, and I appreciate Alderman Black's outline of taking a look at these bylaws and revisiting some of the issues. Because one of the things that strikes me is that we're approaching this, we may be approaching this a little bit differently than normal when the town of Normal, when we're looking at our appointments. For instance, term limits. I think we in Bloomington have kind of a process in Bloomington that talks about term limits for certain appointments, but it's my understanding that's not the same, handled the same way in Normal, and I would have a question as to whether or not board appointments is subject to our rules or subject to some other rules, if I'm making sense there. So we have the bylaws. We also have the understanding or is it called the agreement or the memo of understanding with the town of Normal that sets out what we're agreeing to do. And I think as we go back and study this, we need to agree on some things of this nature. I don't know the answer to that, but I think we have to handle it in the same manner. In other words, folks should not time out on the Bloomington side if they're not timing out on the Normal side, as far as their tenure and their term of service. So, and if they're timing, let's just all come up with a decision together on whether or not we will have term limits. So that's just one of the things that kind of surfaced in my mind as I've spoken to members of the community on some of the, their inputs on what the next generation of Connect Transit looks like. So thank you.
Just as at 500 feet, just to clarify, there are some boards and commissions where you can't have term limits and we don't have control over it. But I've tended to take kind of the spirit of the council's actions from a few months into being mayor, where actually it was at that time Alderwoman Schmidt and Alderman Sage who came to me and made that suggestion, and I think it was approved unanimously by the council. So I've tended to use that when people have been reappointed to other boards and to say, you would run up against our time limit. And so it doesn't mean you can't continue to serve, but the concept was at least take a year off and then come back and maybe get a fresh perspective and come back. So is that pretty safe to say? Because I think it's Airport Authority, Housing Authority, probably even Connect Transit, our term limits ordinance does not apply. But there are at least some but I've tried to use that and to say, to people, we certainly appreciate your service and you can apply again next year, but I'm going to take the 9-year limit and apply that, across the board. Again, that's just my decision as mayor. The next mayor might not, but that may be something that we can address.
And my suggestion is that we address it in a manner that's consistent with Normal. So if we're applying a 9-year term limit, then we'll look to Normal to do the same. And if they're saying no, that we're not agreeing with term limits, then we don't employ that 9-year term limit in Bloomington, because it's not just Bloomington business we're doing, right? We're serving the region. So from a regional standpoint, we need to have a regional approach as we talk about various and sundry things, and I think term limits is one of them.
As I understand it, this would have been several city councils back, Normal had no particular interest in pursuing term limits. This would have been in 2013. Obviously, we have the same mayor, but different council today.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I have not had that conversation with him.
So again, I think that'd be something to add to our list, and as we discuss Connect Transit and 2.0 or 4.0 or wherever we are.
Wherever we are.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Craybill, last but not least, sorry.
Thank you. A few things. I'll just, again, appreciate Tim and all the staff members for the orientation, giving of your time on a Saturday morning. Also, personally, both Tim and a lot of other staff members have assisted me in learning about things and answering my dumb questions, so I appreciate that. I wanted to promote an event that'll be fun, Kite Fest 2019. It'll be this Sunday from 11 to 4 p.m. You can go and fly a kite, buy a kite at Hancock Stadium, and it's for a lot of good causes. On the Connect Transit, one of the things, and I'm going to echo a little bit what Karen Smith said in a normal town council meeting last week. While I think what Brant is doing in the community is awesome, that's the kind of business we need to have in this community. But we are making financial concessions to them, and I think when we consider other things, other priorities with regard to low-income, vulnerable people, such as rate increases and that type of thing, with Connect Transit, we should keep that in mind. And then on the issues that were discussed tonight with Connect Transit, I appreciate everybody that came out. I always like a lot of public comment. With regard, I do generally agree with the people expressing an interest in having someone that's a regular rider as well as a Connect Mobility rider serve on that board, maybe even having that as a majority. That would have to be worked out with Normal, I believe. And just to kind of add on a little bit to what Scott and Jen have said with regard to fares, things we also should be considering is, the routes and making sure we serve the most vulnerable people, as well as making sure more stops are ADA accessible. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the information on the Kite Fest. And I can finally take the advice of people who've told me to go fly a kite. So, bad joke. Okay. At this point, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Alderman Black. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Carrillo. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. We're adjourned. Thank you.